FM is Kickstart. My name is Gardy. I have Dr. Aaron Chapa with Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center in studio. I'm going to kick this on the FM, and we're going to have some fun today. Feel free to share this out and ask some questions if you have them. Here we go. Good morning. This is KHEA Radio. I have Dr. Aaron Chapa with Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center hanging out in studio. Dr. Chapa, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Gardy. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you.
Man, I'm telling you, the school season, everybody's talking about it. It's like, you think they're ready?
You know, they have to be.
Yeah, I guess they do.
What's the other choice?
Yeah. There's no other choice. I think my kids kind of got that pregame jitters. They're like excited, curious what the new year's going to bring.
I saw some pics of them.
Yeah, they are. I think they're excited. So we're going to just see how the season plays out, and just be on the front end proactive in what we're going to be doing. Supplementally with their health going into school, and making sure that kids. Today, I remember being a kid and I just had no worry, no thought of what I was putting in my body, that it mattered. I always was taught, what we eat for breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Then there was a season where I was like, is that just a cliche? Is it really that important? Because I see like kids today skipping breakfast and, eating pastries and donuts and kolaches for breakfast, and I sit back and I was like, what? How are we to get through the day effectively? And I'm thinking, how much better could my brain have been functioning had I known how to start my day? And so school's going to be a new experience for many kids going back, and we're all settled back in. But now we've got to remember, when those school doors open, we also stir up a lot of dust, and we start, getting in and out. We start exposing ourselves to all these, fresh, friends that we haven't seen in a while, the acquaintances, the ones that are kind of like live too far away to go hang out with on the regular, and you're going to start seeing people get sick and cold. The cold season is about to be upon us. So we've got a lot of things in the health and wellness realm that we've got to talk about. And, I thought about just kind of getting back into school, talking about vitamins, minerals, and essential fats, and seeing, how the body is, giving us signs and symptoms of deficiency. We were working in our clinical training this week, and we had a patient that had gone into our infrared sauna, and they did some good detox work. Remember we talked about that a few weeks ago. When you're in the infrared sauna, it causes the body to upregulate cellularly through increase in ATP production, or adenosine triphosphate, or basically cellular energy money. And so the more cellular energy money you have, the more cellular energy you have to give to the work that needs to be done for your body to perform at its best. Well, she comes in, we start working on her, and we find that she's, kind of loaded down with a little bit of a sinus cold. Looks like, smells like a virus, but no, that's not what showed up. What showed up was, it was more chemical, it was more metal, it was like old stuff from her past that showed up that we needed to address. That was the burden her body was carrying. And interestingly, we didn't find out in the testing until after that we had done the infrared sauna over the weekend. And it was fascinating to me to see her body have this virus look, but it wasn't the virus. It was the chemical metal, but it wasn't even the chemical metal that her body needed to support getting rid of the chemicals and metals, because the body should be able to get rid of it. You know what it was?
What was it?
It was one of the simplest deficiencies, mineral deficiencies. And so when we look at vitamins, minerals, and essential fatty acids, we want to take inventory. Are we giving our body what it needs throughout the day? And if you're taking, we use Catalin at the office, it's 200 phytonutrients, phytochemicals in the form of food, all kinds of food, green foods, orange foods, colorful foods that the body can leverage and use to get those phytonutrients and phytochemicals out of the plant into our bodies. That is a powerful, powerful food product. Our Energy Force product, a lot of vitamins and minerals packed in that product, anti-inflammatories and things to give the cells that energy boost that it needs to perform at its best. And kids need this as much as adults. Just because, a kid is a kid, so to speak, and we think that their bodies they do have more stem cells than adults have. They are still developing so rapidly, their nutritional demand is as high, if not higher in some capacity, than adults. And, and I never really want to compare because they're not apples to apples. They're apples to oranges. Like children have a lot of their own things that their bodies are going through. Well, so do adults, because what's happening once we cross over the 30, 40, 50 mark? We start feeling the aging process, right? And so we have to combat that. Whereas when we're kids, we just seem like we're on the up and up and up, but they're developing astronomically, and their need for vitamins, minerals, essential fats is as high as is for adults going into the aging process, and aging gracefully is the goal. I mean, who wants to get to the end and feel worn out, decrepit, and really not a functioning member of society? That doesn't sound appealing, right? So what do we want our lives to look like after we've built it? And it starts in our youth. A lot of disorders like osteoporosis or osteopenia, bone issues, are childhood disorders due to lack of minerals in the soil, or the flat out lack of nutrient dense foods that people are consuming in their youth. Because what kid really wants to eat their greens?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we're lacking these vitamins, these minerals, these essential fats. And too often I'm in the clinic room and I find a reflex on their body that kind of is like a deep tendon reflex, but it's for essential fats and it's for minerals. And I'm shocked. I go, "You haven't been taking your essential fatty acids today, have you? Your cod liver oil, your sardine oil." And they go, "How'd you know?" I said, "Well, your body presentation, you're telling me you got brain fog. You're telling me that your HDLs are off, you're too low, that your cholesterol's out of sorts." We know that inflammation is high and their bodies are in pain. That is a sign that they're eating too many omega-6 fats, or the plant-based, nut-based oils, or worse, the canola oils and the corn oils and the soybean oils that are driving this ratio out of balance. And it's in everything. I mean, it's in bars. It's in formula, baby formula. It's in different butters. I mean, I was over there at the butter section on Saturday, and I was looking. I'm like, how confusing can we make butter? I mean, it's one thing, guys, but yet we've got 17 different varieties of butter over there, and then you got to pick the one. Do you go with the dollar one that's cheap, and it's probably got all kinds of hormones and injected into the animal, and antibiotics, and gosh knows whatever else might be in there, not realizing that the body stores toxins and fat. Well, not just in you, in animals too. So if an animal's eating poor quality food and those toxic buildup is coming up, guess what's happening for your the fats of that animal? Well, it's storing up those toxins, and then they pull out that it is real butter, except that it's a butter that is laced and chemicalized with toxins and processing from the animal, and it's storing up this fat.
I'm going to tell you what I do. When I pick butter, I just pick the one that my mom used, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, well, that's what
What is that one?
It was, I can't tell you. No, I've switched.
As long as it's not Parquet.
It was not Parquet, but no, we grew up using.
I don't even know if that one's still around. Is it?
I don't know. I haven't seen the commercials,
No.
but the commercials were funny, But that's how things work, and you've talked about that before. You only know what you know, or
That's
what you
right.
were taught, or that's why it's important to start with the kids.
It is wild that we are creatures of habit. I mean, we just reach to what we know, and but recognizing that when you're picking your butter and it's got soybean oil in it or canola oil in it, put it back. It is not the butter for you. It is not a butter that is healthy for you. You want butter because real butter has vitamin F in it. What's that?
Yeah, I didn't know there was a vitamin F. I thought we stopped
It's almost
at
like we swept that under the rug back in the mid 40s, and nobody really talks about this, vitamin F. This vitamin F is essential in allowing nutrients, minerals particularly, to ride in on the back like a taxi to the cell. And if we don't have that taxi service taxing around our nutrients like they're supposed to that micro cellular level, then guess what happens? Deficiency is next, because you're not getting the stuff to where it needs to go. But we think that having these omega-6s as a plant-based oil, because plants are quote unquote better for us, right? We all need to eat our vegetables, but we're talking about it again. We're not comparing the same thing. We're taking ideas, and these essential fats, although good for us, in a average person, it would be about a 6-to-1 ratio. But the average we're seeing right now, and that's omega-6s to omega-3s, and this is talking about fat, is we are sitting at about 35 to 1 ratio, where we are completely out of balance, and which draws us, the higher your omega-6 fats are. Again, where does omega-6 come from? That's canola oil, that's soybean oil, that's cottonseed oil. That's a lot of the seed-based oils that people are using today, or that they don't even realize they're using, because it is literally in that 75-word paragraph of ingredients that is on whatever processed food that you're indulging in right now. Maybe. I hope not.
As you're listening and watching.
I can hear the crunches of the chip, and I'm thinking, yep, that was another canola oil. I mean, I remember, this used to make me so mad. Really, at some level, when you start talking about food, we just finished our 10-week class for teens on how to eat macros and how to incorporate healthy proteins. We called it the ABC protein list, the ABC carb list, the ABC fats list, which ones are the best. And we have another class coming up in the next few months. So if you're interested in that, y'all should contact us and ask 281-554-8600. We can give you some more insight on that teen class. I mean, you don't even have to be a teen really to go through it. I mean, it's a great class. But the idea was just to show these kids, the power of food. And one of the books that was required reading was called Getting Back to the Basics of Health and Nutrition by Mary Frost. And this book, the 3 kids that did a presentation for us on Saturday at the end of year celebration, end of summer celebration, 2 of them said that what they got out of the book angered them, and I'm like, sorry. You know what I mean?
It works. Something got a reaction.
It got a reaction, and but that anger was because there was our food has been adulterated. Our food has been chemically altered. Our food is from a soil level being manipulated, and we're missing ingredients in God's creation, because the soils are devoid of. Because you can't expect a plant to give you something that's not in the soil. You know what I mean? So if the soils are lacking, so is the product that you're eating. And then if you take and you chemically alter the product all the more, it just depletes the nutrient content. Again, it's just that dilution of effect that leads to delusion that you're actually eating something. And so when I say that is, I remember in the bulk aisle at like Whole Foods, they used to have this big barrel, and it had like dried sweet potato and dried carrot and dried green beans and dried, beets and weird other things. And I remember you'd go in there with your big scooper, and you'd scoop a ton of this dry goodness into a bag and tie it up and stick your sticker on it and go check out, and think you're eating, that when you dip it in your guacamole or your salsa, and you're like, I'm eating healthy. I'm eating dried vegetables, and boy, they taste good. And they did, until you actually started looking at the ingredients, and you go, canola oil? Oh, con oil is what that's called. And when you start seeing how, we've been duped to think that just because it's, been manipulated a little bit and it's still healthy for you, sold in a grocery store, that it's got to be good for you, right? Because they wouldn't sell us fake food, right, Gardy?
It's FDA approved.
It's FDA approved. I mean, we get stamp of
approval.
approval, all right? And I don't want to, go Debbie Downer, but there's a little bit of you've got to come to the realization that not everything that you were taught, just like, our parents did their best to teach us what is real and what isn't real. We're learning that, well, there's still a consequence for choosing the wrong road, even through ignorance. And so at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, we're all about trying to teach people how to live better, be better, and stay better through food. And vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids is an absolute necessity to learn, because food is confusing. That was another thing that we heard, the teens would go through. They said, that food isn't just simply wake up, eat. It's like, well, it's got to taste good. The texture's got to be right. It can't be too salty. It can't be too bitter. It can't be too this or that. I mean, we have all these stipulations around food, and some of it's familiar because we were raised that way. We weren't trained to open up our palate. My grandfather taught me that, look, try everything. The worst thing you have is 35 seconds of discomfort, 35 seconds of, of displeasure. And if you don't like it, you don't have to eat it. But what I've always taught, how many exposures to the palate, Gardy? 17 exposures to the palate. Little Johnny will start to come around and be okay with. I would never forget when I introduced my neighbor to Brussels sprouts. He fought me tooth and nail, hated it, and he didn't. He actually didn't fight me tooth and nail. He had fought his parents tooth and nail for trying vegetables, and then I'm over there stirring up, some what Kinley now calls sparkly vegetables, and it's onions and bacon and Brussels sprouts, and the way my mom used to do it. The reason I didn't want try them as a kid, because I was not raised. I mean, she cooked Brussels, but I wouldn't eat them. One, they just looked funny, like they look like miniature cabbage heads, and I was like, I don't want that,
right?
Yeah. But the worst part is when she would steam them, they smelled funny. They smelled sour or bitter or funky in the air. So that was one of my stipulations that I had somehow incorporated, and it wasn't until I was into my third or fourth or fifth or seventh detox that I opened up the Brussels sprout door, and I realized, oh my gosh, I have been missing out. Brussels sprouts, the way my mom was cooking them, was steamed with a little bit of salt and pepper, and when she pulled the steamer lid off, she would squirt lemon juice over the top of them. And although they did smell funny, putting the salt, the pepper, and the lemon juice took the bitter taste out of the Brussels sprout. And so I could put a little butter on top of that, and I would eat the heck out of Brussels sprouts, and finding out that Brussels sprouts are one of the best liver foods. They're detoxification foods, absolute, really rich in nutrients, tons of good things available there, magnesium, calcium, zinc, and we're going to talk about that in just a second, what some of these deficiencies look like in our bodies. And then I realized when I make Brussels, if I cut them in half or shred them down, I realized that smell actually went away. The bitterness was completely gone in the taste. And when you put them with onions and bacon, they actually had a savory, sweet flavor. If they spice the way you want it, then I was like, well, if I can change something as bitter or strong palated as a Brussels sprout, what else could I change? And I used the same concepts with other greens and other veggies, and every detox that I was doing, I started finding new vegetables that I would like. And then I remember my neighbor came over, and I said, he's like, "What you cooking, Chop?" And I said, "I'm cooking, Brussels sprouts." And he's like, "Oh, I hate Brussels sprouts." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, take me through your thinking on that, right? Because I've talked about that. Sometimes it's a bit of an attitude shift that we have to have around, getting our kids to take in some of these nutrients." Did somebody say something funny?
No, I am reading comments that are coming in, but I'm imagining that's your scenario. The neighbor.
Oh yeah, no, it was like a beautiful summer day, right? And so anyway, I said, "Well, tell me what you don't like about Brussels." He goes, "I don't know." I said, "What do you mean? You never had them?" He goes, "No." I said, "Well, then how do how do you have an attitude towards them? And why do you got to be so hardcore to the Brussels sprout? I mean, what did it do to you? I mean, most time people don't like things that picked on them or bullied them or insulted them in some capacity. I said, you've never had a Brussels, but you have this negative, bitter attitude. Who's the judgy one, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, look. One, you never had my Brussels, right? I said, but let's play a game. You know, I'm going to ask you some questions about, because I want you to think about it. You don't like it, but what is it that you don't like? You know, and that's what I want you to figure out today. So I said, it's okay that you don't like it, but I want you to take a quarter of this Brussels. And it was like I had them quartered, and I gave him one. And I said, before you bite into it, when you bite it, I want you to tell me what you feel in your mouth and what you taste. I want you to tell me a couple things. I want you to tell me what you like and what you don't like. And then so he goes, okay, puts it in his mouth, starts crunchy. He goes, oh, they're kind of crunchy. Oh, okay. Do you like crunchy? He goes, oh, I love crunchy. Oh, cool. We got something already that we like. And I said, what else? He goes, it isn't really that bad, actually. And he's sitting there chewing it, but put it in his mouth. He was kind of like, nervous. You could tell. He bites into it and he just chews it up. I said, you got to chew it like 15 times at least. You got to really, I want you to taste it and then tell me what you like and what you don't like. He goes, I don't know that there's really much I don't like. I mean, it really kind of tastes good. I'm like, okay, well, just to make sure it's not a fluke, let's try it again. But this time, see if you can taste anything else. He goes, oh, I can kind of taste the sweetness. I was like, something sweet. I said, it's a Brussels sprout. I didn't think they could be sweet. And he goes, well, I taste something sweet. I said, oh, well, that's the onions that I've caramelized down with the bacon. And I said, that's what you're after. I said, isn't that cool? And he goes, that is kind of cool. And the next time I slipped an onion in on him, he didn't even see it. The third time, and by the end of 10, 15 minutes that I'm dialoguing with him and my son, he had already eaten like 4 Brussels. And I said, you should go tell your parents that you've had Brussels sprouts over at Chop's house. And, of course, he did. And then they go, I don't understand. Like, you can get that kid to eat anything. Yeah. And I'm like, I talk them through it, right? Oh, if we would just take the time to talk our kids through it. But we have to then ask ourselves as parents, are we willing to talk ourselves through trying new foods? Isn't that right?
Right.
And so Brussels are, again, just one of those powerful veggies that we need to incorporate. Green beans into are great. Beets are great. People like beets. Well, I found a trick with beets. Beets are a great liver food, and I actually take and shred beets, not shred. I'm sorry. I do the scraper, and I will scrape little slices of beets over the top, almost that would look like a cheese on a top of a salad. And when you do it that way, it actually tastes sweet. And you don't get that dirty, bitter taste that like a biting into a thick beet would oftentimes give you. And now you're giving your liver all kinds of bile-producing capacity, which is a little different from the detox capacity of the Brussels sprout, but still very, very beneficial. And so, as you're going into the new year and you're wanting to get your kids healthier and stronger and more vibrant, parents, this is for you. You've got to be willing to bring in some new veggies, new ideas, new spices, and see what you can do to conjure up some stuff in the kitchen. With the collective consciousness of YouTube and social media, we can literally find anything we want and find, new avenues and ways to cook up stuff, and we don't have to be these professionals on TV that have these gourmet-looking, amazing dishes. Now, I have friends that have gone and learned how to do that stuff just as a hobby because it's fun for presentation. But that at the end of the day, we just got to find it, get it flavorful enough for somebody to indulge in a few bites. Because if you get a few bites today and a few bites next week and a few bites next month and a few bites next year, guess what happens? You hit that 17 exposures before you know it, and now you've got a redefining of the same 11 meals that you've been repeating as beginning to shift. The average American eats the same 10 to 11 foods over and over and over and over and over and over again. And they're oftentimes eating the same familiar foods that, like you said earlier, your parents built you up on and raised you on. Maybe a little incorporation from your wife and you throwing some ideas. She probably gets 8 of her ideas and maybe 3 of yours, right? Because she wins. And that's great. But at the end of the day, what we start seeing is that this is how people evolve, is they find these same 10 to 11 meal ideas and they recycle them over and over, and then they sprinkle in all the processed food, junk food that creates nutritional deficiencies in vitamins, minerals, and essential fats. It creates imbalances in our fat ratios, like we talked about with the omega-6s being too high, 30 to omega-3s and 9s at a 1, and now we're inflamed. Our joints hurt, our brain hurts, we have brain fog, we're weight gaining, our body is not performing optimally. And this is a key indicator of things that we can address nutritionally in our office. We do omega quant test where we actually look at your omega-3, 6, 9 ratios. We look at the firefighters on staff in your body and the fire and the fires that are running, and do you have enough firefighters to fight the fire, inflammation? When we look at blood panels, we look at the numbers functionally and make sure that we're not just settling for pathological ranges when we look at inflammatory markers. We're looking at functional markers and wellness markers to make sure that we see through a better lens, and we can see the handwriting on the wall. We can see where the body is more inflamed than ever and what we can do to balance that out. And we use testing and we use knowledge of understanding of what the body is presenting. So like I was picking on my boy last night. He's an active, strong kid. And I said, dude, look at your fingernails, man. And he goes, what's wrong with them? He goes, you talking about those white spots? I said, yeah, what's up with that? I said, I don't have no white spots on my fingernails. Why you got white spots on your fingernails? He had 3 white spots on his fingers. And he goes, I don't know. I said, do you know what those mean? He goes, not enough protein? I'm like, good guess. I said, nope, but it's more subtle than that. And he goes, and he's thinking through it, and he goes, what does it start with? I said, it starts with an M. And he goes, minerals. And I was like, exactly. I said, do you know which mineral it shows up as white spots on the fingernails? Do we have any answers out there? Do they already throw it in the queue?
Which minerals?
Yeah, which minerals cause white spots on your fingernails?
That's a good question. If anybody knows and you're watching on Facebook, feel free to post that in there. Everybody's kind of hung up on the food part. It's like, man, they're getting hungry. You're talking about all the Brussels sprouts and cooking this and that. I was like, hey, what did y'all eat for breakfast? And people are kind of sharing.
I don't know if people are following me on Instagram, but make sure that you do. But yesterday I posted one of my meals that I eat, and I said, what's for lunch? And what is people eating for lunch? And I was just kind of talking to the idea of like macros and like how whenever I build meal plans, I look at the protein, fat, carbohydrate content of a meal and make sure that I'm hitting my macros for the day, and to see kind of how my body's being fueled. Am I putting enough healthy, right fuel in to have a healthy expected outcome by the end of the day? I was up at the office. I was up by 5:15, and I was at the office by 6:30, and I was in more or less 4 appointments, different transitional appointments between 6:30 and 11, and I had to get ready to get back to the office by 12 o'clock when I started seeing patients. Didn't leave out of the office till after 8:30, and so that was a long day for me. But can a person keep performing like that day in and day out if they're not putting in the right fuel? And I don't think they can. I think they can right up until they get anxiety and depression. I had this one, guy who was big into the sales, oil and gas stuff, and he came to see me because all of a sudden, out of the blue, after like 10, 15 years in the field of doing this work, and he wasn't laborious. It was just lots and lots and lots of travel, lots and lots and lots of hours, and he began to develop claustrophobia on airplanes. What? And you know what it was? It was twofold. It was he lacked the nutrients to regenerate adrenal tissue to manage stress. The stress got too high, which depleted his minerals, and now his mind is racing of all the possibilities with no filter engagement from the brain to slow down that thought process so he could rationalize the thoughts that he was having. Because if you look at the brain, especially when you look at it when it's sleeping, the mind is way more active when you're sleeping than when it is awake. And so if you actually look at the brain under these sleep conditions, you'll see that people that have nightmares and people that are watching movie reels in their head while they're sleeping, they're not sleeping. They are literally subconsciously in twilight watching all the crazy that's going on in their own brain. I mean, some people have said that when we sleep, it is a time for your brain to be legally insane with all the stuff that's going on up there. There's so much synaptic activity and things rushing around, hustling and bustling to get you ready for the next day. I mean, there is a lot of recovery that happens. Talk about we as kids and as adults looking to our parents or to social circles, tight niches to help us through life. Well, I want you to recognize that your brain is like, a mama bear, a papa bear, and there is so much that your brain is doing for you during the night, so that when you wake up the next morning, you feel refreshed and alive, and you spring up like a Pop-Tart, and you're like, and you get after it, and you're like, yes, life is good. But if you're watching these movie reels, if you're watching this crazy happen in your brain, or if this gentleman was sitting on an airplane and he's thinking of all the crazy that's running through his head, and he can't slow it down enough to process and say, that's not going to happen, that's not going to happen, that's not that one. Well, that probably could happen, but not likely. And he's able to start rationalizing because he lacked the adrenal stress management tools in his adrenals, his physiology, and his minerals were low. Things got out of hand in his thinking, and he created a psychosomatic issue that he did not have after 15 years of doing the same thing. Like, how do you fly around the world, fly around the country, and all of a sudden, with no trauma that he can speak of, he didn't have a bad airplane experience. The things didn't drop out of the ceiling for him to need oxygen. He had no rough turbulence. He goes, nothing. It was just like, I got on the plane, and it was the worst flight I've ever had because I was freaking out. And I go, okay. So, that is a sign of mineral deficiencies, calcium, magnesium, specifically. He lost those calming minerals. Well, that's not good. Did anybody have any ideas for our white spots?
Yeah, we had iron and a couple calciums.
Good ideas, and we definitely will talk about some of those. But specifically to white spots on the nails, zinc. Zinc deficiencies are the number one ding indicator for a need. Is they show up in white spots on your fingernails. And so now that all of you are looking at your fingernails, we might as well keep going. If you see white spots in your zinc's low, zinc has over 300 different jobs to do in your body. Everything from skin, hair, nails. What woman doesn't want beautiful skin, hair, nails? What man really doesn't want, beautiful skin, hair, nails? They might not say it, but deep down they're thinking, I wish my skin was radiant. I wish my hair would grow back. You know what I mean? And I get it. And we just look at these nail beds, and we say, are the nails healthy? Like, are they pitted? Are they ridged? Do they have do they look deformed? Do the fingernails feel strong and mighty, or are they flimsy and brittle? These are other mineral deficiencies, B vitamin deficiencies, that can create some of these other things. But we look at those white spots as indicators for zinc. And just kind of staying on the topic of the nails, when they're weak and fragile, it's an essential fatty acid problem. And going back to that story earlier with the vitamin F and the omega-3s and 9s, the omega-3, 9, and vitamin F family, they allow the taxi service to get the minerals to the tissues, aka your fingernails. And so if you have strong fingernails, that means that you've got some aspect of good, healthy mineral load concentration, but you could still have a specific zinc deficiency that is an indicator light that you're moving in the wrong direction, right? It just hasn't got to the point where your fingernails have gotten flimsy yet. And so that's an indicator. And then if you look at your nails and you see the little white moons at the bottom down towards the cuticles, those are indicators for brain and major exit channels on the thumbs. So if you have a nice, healthy, pretty little crescent moon popping up, your brain and major exit channels are working really really well. If on your pointer, liver gallbladder, the little luna lie there, if that moon is present, that will be an indicator that you have good circulation to your liver gallbladder. And so if you don't have a moon there, don't panic. It doesn't mean that you're going, something is bad, wrong, but it is a check engine light that you ought to be paying attention to, that we've got to work on. And so we see, what are we going to do? Liver gallbladder needs work. We might need to eat those Brussels sprouts. We might need to find a way to get some beets in. We might need to figure out a way to get some liver extracts into your tissues. Maybe your iron's a little bit low and you're not getting the red blood cell oxygenation factor to happen. And so there could be several factors involved in those little white moons at the bottom of the nails. And then the middle fingers is going to be cardiovascular. Oh, whoa. I don't have any moons, one person says to Dr. Chapa, and I'm like, well, doesn't mean that you're going to have a cardiovascular incident, but it does mean that your heart is lacking, your circulation is lacking, and could be improved. Don't we want to improve our tissues to the best of our ability? Yes. And so these are how we evaluate and look at our overall system and see and make sure everything is doing what it's supposed to. And so, and that could be B vitamins, that could be essential fats, that could be phosphorus, that could be calcium, that could be magnesium. There's a balance between calcium, magnesium, phosphorus that could be circulatory, and we could see those moons come back by balancing out just those. And we're like, golly, we're just looking at our fingernails. Like, what else could? What's the next finger say, Chapa? And the next one is your endocrine system. Remember, we've talked. Endocrine just means hormonal. It means your pituitary, hypothalamus, your thyroid, your adrenals, your testes or ovaries, depending on your gender. And we see that if the endocrine system doesn't have moons, well, maybe your stress is a little too high. Is that possible? Heck yeah, it is. Who's not stressed in the world? And so we want to see how can we remedy that issue. And so what we want to look at is, moving the story forward is, all right, well, what about the pinky? Do the pinkies mean anything? And if you have a moon there, it means that your thyroid actually, in this case, may be a little bit overactive. Well, that's something that we want to make sure that we don't have. We don't want to have an overactive thyroid because that could actually cause issues with palpitations or chest pains, and that would be another indicator of deficiency, that the thyroid is actually not getting told to slow down and it's overproducing. And so when we look at the thyroid overproducing, it might indicate the next symptom might be angina or chest pain, sharp heart pains, palpitations, and that is another nutritional deficiency that we want to pay attention to. And what is angina and chest pains and deep sternal chest pains, sharp heart pains are indicators of is B vitamins. B vitamins like B1, B2, B3. We've got to get in there and make sure that you've got adequate B vitamins to keep you calm, cool, and collected, but to also to make sure that heart is contracting and working like God designed it to. And you should never feel your heart. You should never ever feel that your heart is beating. If you feel your heart beating and you are not working out and you don't have a good rhyme or reason, it could be that you're taking in too many stimulants, maybe like coffee or sugar or processed food. Maybe you got anxiety coming up because of a test. Ooh, those school kids, testing, or maybe just the pregame jitters of going to a new school or going to school in general, or socializing with new friends and having to kind of start over because you moved to a new area. I mean, there's so many rhymes and reasons, but this is an indicator. If you get into these situations, you should still never have chest issues, chest pains, deep sternal chest pains, palpitations, feeling that heartbeat, and so that at that moment that your body needs calming down. And we can help that system calm down through fat-soluble B vitamins, as well as calming that system down through healthy essential fatty acids, again, like your cod liver oil or your sardine oil, even tuna oil, these fatty fish oils, salmon or effective in this capacity. Again, when I talk about minerals, I also will bridge it oftentimes with essential fats, because there's so much that we're missing in today's food supply chain, putting in the wrong fats, which creates inflammation and disrupts the delivery system of the minerals to their destination, which creates deficiencies. So we keep the same concept. We're talking today about vitamins, minerals, essential fats, and the whole idea is we can't neglect the simplest of stressors on our body. What vitamins, minerals, essential fats? I've listened to people talk on different podcasts and different stations and on health, and I'm shocked when they will say things like you don't need vitamins and minerals as a supplement. Well, it's just because they're uneducated. They don't realize that the mineral concentration in the ground is lacking and devoid, and that if you eat a vegetable that was grown in poor quality soil, then you really have a poor quality vegetable. And I've always said that when you eat make-believe food, the best you'll ever have is make-believe health. And we know that we want to have good, strong, quality health all the days of our life as parents, as the elderly, as children, and we want to perform well in sports, and we want to perform well in the game of life. We want to maximize all aspects of our tissues. So what about oily skin? Oily skin is another big problem, kind of talking about that whole, we all want to look good and don't want issues that people can see, because then that brings awareness that we are human and not perfect, and things are maybe not as healthy as in our life as we would like them to be. And so if you've got an excessively oily skin, it could be that you're producing too many hormones, specifically in testosterone. And so like boys, you would kind of expect that to some degree, and you don't necessarily want to slow that down. You want them to develop as much as their body needs to. But what if they're overproducing? That could be a problem. And so what would we wind up doing in that case is we're going to do a little bit of liver work. We're going to do a little bit of adrenal work, and we're going to help that adrenal slow down the testicular production of testosterone or balance it out. I don't really want to say slow down, because if the body needs to speed it up, the body's going to speed it up. If the body needs to slow it down, the body will slow it down. We're not putting nutrients in that cause the body to stop production. Very few foods and herbs can we actually use to stop the body's processes. We give the body a downloaded software through a plant herb nutrient, and we let the body choose which direction it's going to go. And oftentimes they're adaptogenic, which means adaptive. They help the body slow down if it's ramped up, or speed up if it's too slow. And that's a cool thing about what I do in my office, and as a team, what we do to help support the body is to see the deficiencies, recognize the issues, and then support the body's deficiencies or stressors, remove those burdens so that the body can perform like God created it to. And in females, if they have excessive amounts of hormone production, it could be. And men as well, but definitely in females that have like really crazy cycles, heavy bleeding, lots of cramping, lots of signs and symptoms of like endometriosis, where they have overgrowth, or polycystic ovarian issues, where they have cysts growing around the ovaries. It's due to blood sugar imbalances. They're consuming too many sugars. And they're like, oh no, I'm not. Oh well, maybe you're a carbitarian, meaning you think you're a vegetarian or a vegan, and you're just overeating carbs. And those carbs are coming in because they're processed. They don't have the nutritional load that we're hoping for. They've been highly chemically altered. They're processed with fake ingredients, enriched, fortified. These are buzzwords for fake food. And now we're putting these things in that rob the body of B vitamins. They rob the body of key minerals that allow the balancing act to happen, that adaptogenic effect to naturally occur. And now your insulin levels are spiking because you're eating these over and over and over, day in and day out, and you're sprinkling in candy and cookies and junk food in on top of it, and not realizing, because you're not tracking what you're doing, and all of a sudden you're so far off balance, and you've been having bloody, crazy, nasty cycles for the last 2-3 years of your life, and that's not normal. But yet, oh, it was normal for my mom, so I have it. No, that's not normal. We can fix that kind of stuff. We can balance that kind of stuff. And so then we get in there and we start changing the insulin spikes. We start changing the diet, and we start supporting the endocrine system, and we start balancing out the hormones, and the system begins to perform more calmly, coolly, and collectively, and with less of those aggressive those negative symptoms that people come into my office with day in and day out. And this is something that we want to address and teach people. And that sign or symptom could first manifest through oily skin. I mean, crazy. So you're telling me that I could have, some advanced hormonal problem just because I have oily skin? Yeah, I am, but it doesn't have to be. It could just be the start. Remember, we don't want it to get to that extreme state. We want to catch it whenever it's just oily skin, and address that. And we want to see if we can start balancing out your system before it becomes a hormonal disaster, male or female. What about, when you have cracking in the corners of your mouth, looks like a little fever blister developing or something, or you have cracking on the heels. That's 3 things. That's calcium, B vitamins, and essential fatty acids. That's like almost all of all of them. Well, that doesn't help. Well, what would I do? First, I'd start with calcium, magnesium. I'd pack it into the little crease holes. They call them fissures. And we want to, support those. And then we want to start asking other questions. Are you fatigued, especially in the afternoon, around 1 to 3? Yes, that happens to me. Well, that means that your B vitamins are low and that your adrenals are starting to suffer. And the cracked heels, that means your essential fatty acids are low, and you've got imbalance in those healthy fats again. We've got to balance that out. Everybody's looking after, and they're like, I don't want to look at my heels. I know they're ugly, because every time I go to the foot place, they go, ooh, and they start, talking about, how crazy my feet look. And so we start realizing, there's a problem there. And so, is it simply that you have, cracking that pops up out of the blue? No, symptoms, guys, are an indicator that something is off, something is wrong, and it's something that you can address and work on regularly. And so any symptom that you have in your body, and anything that you see or find on your body, whether it's little spots on your arms, whether it's yellow eyes and jaundicey type symptoms, like the little spots would be liver, the yellow eyes would be a jaundice liver issue, sign, symptom that there's congestion in your liver tissues. You need to consume maybe some spleen desiccate products or liver products. We need to get your iron levels back up and make sure that the B vitamin issues that you're lacking in are getting resolved so that those symptoms negate and go away. And then your eyes become back to that beautiful, white scleras, and the color of your eyes is crystal. And even, you can have brown eyes but still have a clarity in the color of brown that is like, eye-catching. You go, hey, they don't just fit, their eyes just don't fit in. They pop. There's something different about them. And because we make eye contact with people every day, and when you can see health into the eyes, and you can see what people's eyes, there's signs and symptoms. We could actually go through some point looking at the different signs and symptoms of what the eye is telling us. But we know that just because you have a sign or symptom pop up, an ulcer in your mouth, calcium deficiency, canker sores, those are signs that your calcium magnesium is low. Well, how could that happen? I bit my lip. That's what caused it. Maybe. And not that I disagree with that at all. You traumatize it, that's a wound. But shouldn't it heal? Does it need to take 14 days? You can't put a Band-Aid on it, but you could apply calcium magnesium powder, and you could apply USF ointment topically, fat and minerals right on top of the tissue. Yes, it's going to dissolve pretty quickly, but you're going to get some direct application right there on the spot, so that your delivery of the calcium magnesium powder to the tissues through the fats is available. And then, yes, you're going to then swallow that stuff, and then it's going to absorb into your tissues and come at a different angle and heal the tissue. So instead of it taking 14 days, now it's like 5 days, 6 days. You're cutting the healing time down by a third, 2/3, half, and we see things improving. What if you have pink toothbrush syndrome? People walking around and they've got, bloody toothbrush and they don't know what causes that. They're just like, oh, I'm brushing too hard. No, that's an indicator that your vitamin C level is low. And specifically the vitamin P factor, which is very porous and helps the delivery of healthy blood, rebuilding and reconditioning, that vitamin P factor will help to resolve that bleeding gum. But in today's world, we are taking the wrong type of vitamin C that doesn't have vitamin P in it because it's synthetic, just ascorbic acid. When there's a complex of vitamins that go into the vitamin C complex. And so we want the tyrosinase, the cofactors, the flavonoids, the bioflavonoids, those vitamin P, K, and J, and the ascorbic acid. Can you get benefit of just ascorbic acid? Yes, for a short season, but it's not a long-term fix. And in the case of the bleeding red gums, that's an indicator that your vitamin C level is down and you're developing towards blood disorders, arterial sclerosis, arterial disease, and cardiovascular insults. And it all starts from looking and listening to the body tell you where it's weak and nutriently deprived of vitamins, minerals, and essential fatty acids. And so we oftentimes see people that have pitting edema, in their ankles, like not necessarily kids per se, but we look at these signs and symptoms, and we can tell you can see the sock line at the end of the day. That's a sign of swelling, and that swelling is a kidney issue. That's a vitamin D issue. That is a mineral, again, issue, just calcium, magnesium. We've got to get those nutrients up, and your body is busy doing a lot of things, and you will start seeing these symptoms manifest in the body, and if you can keep those symptoms at bay, your body will perform better throughout your day, your week, your month, especially getting everybody off and running down the line in a healthy way. So, at Living Well, we're not just putting people on programs. We're listening to people's story. We're trying to figure out, where is your body breaking down? What can we do to affect your physiology through vitamins, minerals, essential fats? We never want to walk away from a case and not evaluate the basics. The basics are the basics are the basics. They're going to help the body repair, recover, regenerate, and thrive. And so we come in and always simply suggest with your kids, Catalin, chewable Congoplex, Tuna Omega chewable, the Children's Immune. If you just did something like that as a quartet of support, now you've got 200 phytonutrients, phytochemicals, vitamins coming in to support your child. You've got calcium and magnesium coming in to support your child. You've got brain food coming in to make sure the nervous system is working from north to south down into the tissues. And you're balancing out that nice fatty tissue with Tuna Omega to de-inflame the areas of the body that are inflamed, to help those areas that get injured recover, and to help that the nutrient delivery mechanisms kick in. And then the Children's Immune to stimulate that immune system if they get sick or have fevers or get exposed to a new bug from their friend that snotted on them at the next table over. Because who knows, whatever age that you're in, how, grubby their little hands have been messing around. It happens, right? So at Living Well, we believe all life starts and stops at the cellular level, and nutrition is the fundamental backbone that helps your body heal, recover, regenerate, and thrive. And we just talked today about how powerful vitamins, minerals, and essential fats are, and your body's many signs that it is manifesting in you right now that is an indicator that something is awry. And so if you have questions, if you're concerned about your health, or you feel like you need a tune-up, or you need somebody to kind of speak to some of the things that you are suffering with that you might have pushed off as normal aging issues in your body, we want to encourage you to make an appointment, come in, let us help you see where your body's breaking down and what we can do to serve it best. Because again, all life starts and stops at the cellular level, and nutrition is the fundamental backbone that helps your body thrive and to come alive and as you navigate this season and new stresses come into your life and compound against the old stresses that you haven't gotten over yet, guess what? You're going to need support. And I think when you recognize that you need a helping hand, you'll find that Living Well is right there to give you a hand up. And we want to make sure that we applaud you going forward, putting in the effort, taking the bull by the horns, and choosing that to take health into your own hands. Because today, if you're waiting for somebody to care about your health more than you do, you're going to miss the boat. That boat never will come, and you're going to find yourself dealing with symptoms, challenges, health conditions, diagnoses that are unnecessary. And so we want to give you as much encouragement and support, and that's what we're all about at our office, is teaching people how to live better, be better, and stay better through food. And we know that you can do it. We know we can find a balance for you in looking at food more healthily and more intentionally, and bringing in your deficiencies and turning them into replenishment, reconditioning, regenerative states where your body will set you up for a healthy, brighter year and a healthy, brighter, future going forward, because what you do today will impact tomorrow. And we've always said it, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So choose Living Well, man. We're excited to be a part of your world. We come on the show, KHEA, every week. We're 99.5 on the radio. We're all over social media. We've got a great podcast. We've got social media coming out through our Instagram that we're trying to get more daily things up and running, because we want to be a resource for you and a reminder to you that you can do more than you're doing, that you can integrate this stuff as a natural, healthy part of your day-to-day, so that it's not a hard lesson, it's a healthy living that you're doing day in and day out. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, you're excited about taking the next step forward, man, we can help you get there. 281-554-8600. Visit our website, justlivewell.com. Let us know how we can help you, serve you at your best, and we look forward to serving you in the future. God bless you all. We'll see you next week.
This is KHEA Radio, 99.5 FM.
I cannot see